If you're watching this video, you're probably trying to learn the best way to bracket images for real estate photography. Now, I'm going to show you 3 different methods and then a couple of ways to execute those based on the property. Now, a few things to contend with at this property. It's actually a great example. I'm dealing with a vacant unit, so the way I'm going to execute my brackets is a little bit different. And then I'm contending with weather, so big clouds are coming in and out. I'm also right off of a major street with lots of traffic. And the other thing is, as you noticed me walking in, a bunch of light changes I'm walking through. So I'm gonna dive into my camera settings and then let's break it down for you on brackets. So first things first, when I show up to a property, I want to double check my settings. And there's a few things that I look at right away. Now, my exposure compensation for my first example and first method I'm going to show you, I want my exposure compensation to just simply be at 0. That's fine. And then I want to look at my recording functionality. I want to make sure that my playback is on my first card, because if I delete something, I want to look at it, delete it, and it just helps me in editing later on. The other thing is recording to multiple cards just for safety purposes. You know, you might want to format your card first thing in the day just to keep things moving smoothly. But then, and by moving smoothly, I mean you're not having to go back from yesterday's listings. It's easier just to see everything you shot today. Inside, I like to shoot at an ISO of 400, especially if this home is a little bit dark. And then f-stop, I want to be around 9 when I'm inside. So that is a good start for settings. Now I'm going to show you the first method of bracketing. The first method I'm going to show you is the 3 bracket method. Now there's 2 ways I like to do this. There is in camera, where the camera will actually shoot the 3 brackets with 1 touch. The other way is actually the single frame method, which I actually prefer for this type of a property, and I'll tell you why. For the 3 bracket method, if I want to have the camera do the 3 exposures for me, I can go to my second menu option under the camera, hit exposure, comp, and I want to roll the top dial on the Canon R5 till I see the 3 exposures I want it to make. The first is going to be right at 0, and then I typically like to have one that's about 2 stops overexposed and one that's 2 stops underexposed to capture the details in the shadows and then the details in the highlights. Now that that's set, I'm going to go back to my frame that I've set up, and I want to hit my Q button and hit a 2-second timer so that I'm not having to click the button each time. I can just line this up, make sure that my 3 exposures are where I want them to be. I want my autofocus dot to be here, and I'm going to click. Now it's going to run its 3 exposures, and I can see it took each one of them and did not collapse them. Those are there for me to edit later. I have run into issues where I just want to wait for the cars to pass by. So in this scenario, and with this house, what I would do is I would take my in-camera brackets off, and I set my touch screen to make my exposure. I'm going to take my 2-second timer off, and I'm going to run these brackets each individually. I'm going to wait for that person to pass by, see that the traffic has picked up. Now I'm going to retake that exposure, and I want to again do the same here, and then traffic has really picked up. I want to wait, and now. Got it. Okay. Now I was able to ensure each of my 3 frames had no traffic in it and no people walking by, and it gives me a lot more control. So while you may think, and it may be intuitive to think, that the in-camera bracketing is faster, in scenarios like this, it's actually faster just to do it manually. So you're not having to go over and over and over again, especially if you're shooting for 5 brackets or longer exposures in darkly lit rooms. A second way to bracket would be with 5 frames. Now, in order to change this to 5 frames, I want to go to my camera and I want to hit number of brackets. I want to change that to 5. Once that's set, I can just go back in just like I did before and change my, oh, there we go. I typically like to do, let's say, about 1.5, maybe 2.5 over, and then 1.5, 2.5 under. With this one, it looks like I might want to just push this to 3. Let's just keep it at 2.5. So now we're going to have our 5 brackets and my 5 exposures. It's taking all of them. And that fifth one, the 5th bracket, I got a car in my frame. So now I'm going to have to retake that. Now, conversely, what I can do is take this off and go back and do this manually. A third method is kind of a blend between bracketing and what's called flambient, where you can pop, let's say, 4 frames or 5 frames and then add an additional flash frame to help with color balancing. It helps in edit. Now, let's show that. With this method, I might do a manual where I'm going, let's say, overexposed a couple of frames. I might go right in the middle and then somewhere down along the lines of -2. And then I really want to make sure I'm getting all the details in my highlight so I get, you know, something really underexposed, but still there's some detail there. So the less manual way of doing this with exposure comp, and I want to roll this over to where I want my 5 exposures to be. Now I'll set that as okay. And just like before, I'm looking at my exposures where they're going to be, and I have a 2-second timer on just to confirm that it's there. And then I would hit go. Now it's going to take those 5 exposures. And then after those are taken, I can flip my flash on here, and I want to roll this to about 200th of a second, and then pop that last exposure. Now that's a little bit quicker. It saves you a little bit of time, but with this house in particular, it really doesn't save me any time to do that, so I'm actually doing all manual exposures. The other reason that I shoot with 5 frames and individually shoot each frame is I'm shooting for Real Kit, which is a real estate photography and videography company here in Atlanta, and they pride themselves on high quality cinematic real estate images for their clients. So it's not all about shooting the fastest, it's about shooting the highest quality and having more control over the end result of images. So it takes a couple more seconds to do a manual click on the actual camera, but I can guarantee you it will, the amount of difference in time is nominal. So I'll give you my closing thoughts as I'm walking up to this very kooky attic, and it'll show you why I think the way I do on brackets. Now, I've been shooting real estate since 2008, and I think there is an okay way to do it. I think there's a better way to do it, and then the most ideal way. Now, an okay way to do this is with your 3 frames taken in the camera, right? You have the camera take, underexposed, right in the middle, and then over. Now, that's gonna give you the least amount of control, but for all intents and purposes, it is quick, right? And that's why a lot of people do that method. The second way that I think is a little bit better would shoot, 5 frames. So yes, you can do a 5 frame bracket in camera. Again, you're losing out on control in the process. So the camera, once you hit that 2-second timer, you're gonna have all frames fire off. Now, I think the best and most ideal way to shoot your brackets would be set a touch shutter, so you're not shaking the camera too much when you push the button. And each individual frame, you're able to fire at will, and when there are no cars in the way or a pet that's coming through or the owner, you have more control over the end result. And then your last frame, go ahead and pop the flash. It'll help you out in post-processing for color balance. So that's my opinion. Now, if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. It helps me make more videos like this. I love to be helpful, so if you have questions that I didn't answer in this video, please comment below and I'll be sure to answer that as well. Thanks again.